Welcome back to Writing with Witches, where two witches and a cat sit and talk about writing or other various pieces related to writing and publishing your book if you decide to self-publish your book. Anyway, today we are talking about killing characters in your book because that's the fun stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Before we get into that, my name is Leona Urbanski. I'm a debut author with my first book coming out tomorrow. Fire Magic, the first book of the Deathgate trilogy. And my co-host is...
That's so exciting. I didn't realize it was tomorrow. I am Nicole Autumn. I am the author of the completed Secret Society series. And yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. When people get to listen to this episode, it'll be the next day because this episode's airing on the 14th and Fire Magic is releasing on the 15th. So,
dang. That's crazy. I'm so excited for you.
I need to e-proof. I need to proof some e-proofs.
Oh. So that'll roll us into our book news because I've been waiting for Ingram to accept my book cover and interior, which the interior was fine, even though I did find a spot missing. I forgot to put the ISBN, which was weird because the ISBN was on draft to digital. So I was like, that didn't make any sense. But yeah, I've been fighting with Ingram to get my cover situated and then realized that there was a funky rectangle on my cover around my social medias. So I have to go through that process yet again while also re-editing Unleashed, which has been taking me a while. Because this past week I was completely drained. No energy to be had. Nowhere to be found.
This past week flew by. I don't even remember what I did half the week because I just kept getting absorbed in doing stuff. And it wasn't even fun stuff half the time.
No. Yeah, definitely was not fun stuff. I would much rather have been writing, over editing. But getting anything done this past week was just ridiculously hard.
Yeah, that's fair.
So is there any other news besides your book coming out tomorrow?
No, book coming out tomorrow is kind of the big book news for me. Still working on rewriting Faith Touched. I will have that done, I promise. But yeah, and working on helping you edit Unleashed. That's kind of all the energy I've had for writing projects right now. I haven't written on a first draft in a while. Oh, Kitty left. Bye-bye.
He was like, ugh, you guys are talking about books. I'm leaving.
Like, I didn't even see him leave. I just saw the rocking chair start rocking. I was like, oh, yep. Kitty must have jumped off.
Yep, I saw him too.
Anyway,
so
for those who aren't
go ahead.
I have two rocking chairs behind me, and that's when you know the cat left as the rocking chair starts going.
Hopefully it's the cat.
Right? We'll see, I guess. Well, yeah. Or not see, either way.
Well, this time it was the cat, but, you never know. Some other time it may not be a cat. Anyways.
I'll pass on that.
Right? You're, like, salting the room. You're like, get the hell out of my house.
But hey, talking about ghosts, let's talk about killing characters.
Right? Perfect lead in. Perfect lead in.
I try.
Yeah. So this episode we decided to talk about killing characters, which last week we talked about making your readers cry. Well, this is one way to do it. Killing characters off. Grabbing your hair again. Hector's getting sassy. So one of the first reasons is you need to have a good reason to kill off a character. Whether it is, they sacrifice themselves for the main character, or they say, oh, I'm gonna distract him, and next thing you know, they didn't end well. But having a good reason to kill off a character is your basis. So make sure when you go to do it, there is a good reason and it makes sense.
And another reason that a lot of people use as is impetus for the character arc or the protagonist's journey is can often start with a death, like mystery novels. Someone died. That's the start of the novel.
Yeah. Dun dun dun.
So, and taking that example from a mystery novel, it doesn't even have to be someone that was that close or important to the character. Maybe somehow they got involved in this plot, or of trying to figure out why this person died. Maybe they got drawn in by a distant family member. But that is definitely one good reason to have a character die.
Yeah.
Whether you see the death on screen or not. But having the death on screen, as it were, is going to be more emotionally impactful, especially if it's a character that has been around this book and the reader has gotten to know them. So you need to make it count. You need to make it logical, and it needs to help the plot. It can't just be they fell down the flight of stairs and broke their neck. Which can happen. I'm not arguing that. It can. Yeah. But that's not why people are reading the book, for everyday accidents.
That's true. I mean, unless you're writing something that is like a almost comedic way of having characters die, then maybe. But like you said, sometimes it's the catalyst that gets the story going. So like another one I've seen where people won't leave because a parent is sick or a sibling is sick. If that person then ends up dying for whatever reason, that may push your character to say, you know what, nothing else is holding me here at this point. I need to move on. I need to get going. Or maybe they got sick from someone hurting them, or they're going out to then seek revenge, or they got sick so they needed to find a cure and then they ended up being too late, or whatever the case may be. Character deaths can really further the story, which is another point, is having it further the plot. Making sure that those deaths aren't just, like you said, someone falling down the steps and breaking their neck, you know, or someone just falls into a river and drowns, and you're just like, what? Why? So yeah, having it further the plot to push your main character to go and do something is another great way to use character deaths. But again, you know, impactfulness also comes into play there in that situation. I almost choked on my own spit.
One way to die, that's for sure.
Yeah, really. Yep, that's one way. Not swallowing correctly. So,
and it's also something to think about too is, yes, everyday accidents do occur. But you also have to remember you are telling a story. So the point of the story is to make people feel something and to have an impact. And an everyday accident, unless it turns out it wasn't an accident or something, like maybe someone greased the top of the stairs, who knows, needs to have value to the plot.
Yeah.
And have impact to the characters around them and to the reader. So,
yeah.
Whether the reader knew the character or not, a character's death, unless it's like reading it in a newspaper from far away or something as a passing note that comes up later or something, it should have some impact on the reader.
Yeah. I also want to say this is probably not, this episode is probably not going to be for the horror genre, considering everyone's dying. So yeah. Take that with a grain of salt if you're writing horror, because, I mean, every death is meant to further the plot, and they can die in a myriad of ways. Especially if you're writing, like, a Final Destination type style horror, which would be horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. Would never read that. So keep that in mind. But yeah. some things you don't want to kill off your characters purely for the shock of it. Yes, that can sometimes help, but if it comes out of left field and no one's really expecting it and it doesn't make a lot of sense, it really just, you're just like, why? And it's going to make your readers basically just question everything that's going to happen from that point on, if it's going to make sense. So yeah, I make sure you're not doing it just for the pure shock value of, oh, I'm just going to kill off someone's favorite character because why the fuck not? So yeah.
Because it can really, especially if it's a character that the readers have connected with. I know the joke is the lovable side character is the one that always dies. And the joke is there because it is true, but it's harder to kill the main character, quite honestly, because then you can't write sequels. And you have to have some kind of investment from the reader into the character before you kill them. And so that is often why a lovable side character is killed, because they have value to the reader and it can still further the plot of the book and move it along without losing the main character and you having to be introduced to an entirely new. I know one example of this, actually, I know a lot of people, okay, and full disclosure, I did not watch the entire Game of Thrones series. I have read the books up until the point that we are at. But I know a lot of people's complaints were characters were dying for no good reason.
Yeah.
Like there was just random deaths, and some of them was just out of left field, like you said, and it's just there was no reason. I can't list a specific one. Again, it's been a few years since I've read the books.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think, the death of the main character from the first season. What was his name? I don't remember.
Neddard Stark.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah.
I think that was done partially for shock value, because it was the shock of a main character being killed.
See, so my take on that, to me, I didn't think his death was for no reason. I thought, one, it was first off to make a point how brutal the Lannisters were. Two, it also pushed all of the children off into their own separate ways, so those characters could start their side, like their journeys. So, I mean, could he have lived and that still potentially happen? Probably not, because he would have, defending Winterfell, winter's coming, like, those kids wouldn't have moved on if he was still there. So, I don't see it as no reason, but I don't know. I haven't read the books, so that could be why. I watched the show, so I don't know if I would say that one was for no reason. I mean, the one that I would say would be no reason was when they killed the Lannister kids. Those ones, I mean, I get to a point it was to get back at them, but they could have done it in a different way and killing those kids, like, that was pretty effed up. Like, damn.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, so again, like I said, it's been quite a few years, and I think a lot of people were saying that it was pointless when the first season ended. So we hadn't seen those characters on their journey yet, so no one knew where the second season was going to go. And maybe that is what I'm remembering, because I see your point in that, and that does make a good point. But like I said, maybe that's probably where I'm remembering it from. Was I heard a lot of criticisms about it. It's remembering it in my head, but
yeah.
But anyway, and
a long time ago
I'm sure Game of Thrones is going to come up again in this episode, considering we're talking about killing characters off. But
yeah. Another good one for killing characters off would be Supernatural.
That's the fucking truth.
They kill the main characters a lot. They didn't bring them back a lot. And eventually it loses a good point. It loses the effect if you have your main characters dying and coming back. Like, once, holy shit, that's revolutionary. Like, oh my god, they somehow managed to find a way to bring him back. They did it too often.
They did it in Buffy too.
Oh, did they?
Buffy died frequently.
I honestly, I didn't watch. I watched Buffy, but I don't remember it all that much because I was young when Buffy came out, and my mom watched it, but I don't have the greatest recollection of it. I should probably watch it again.
I remember her dying at least twice.
Oh, damn.
Which is less than Dean and Sam, to be fair. But it's Buffy walked so the boys could run when it came to being revived, I guess.
Yep, pretty much. That makes sense, yeah. I know you were going to make a point, and I rudely cut you off. Do you remember what that was?
No idea. No. Okay, no, I do remember was it devalues the character. Like we were talking about just now with reviving the boys all the time in Supernatural. It kind of it just you're like, oh, they can't die.
Yeah.
In that case. But if you're killing them just for the shock value and they don't come back, then it's like, why were they there to begin with?
Yeah.
Just to make me shocked that they died? Mm-hmm. Like you made me put emotional investment into this character just to be like, oh wait, they're dead. Just to see what I do. That devalues why the character was even there.
Another good example of this, pulling from Supernatural, is there was a saying that every person that Sam ever loves, especially like the romance characters, every character he shows any interest in ends up dying. So you just know automatically if he shows any interest in any female character, you know she's going to die. Like straight up, she's dead. We know it. So if you know it's coming, you don't get invested in the characters to begin with. And you never really want your readers to go through your book and know, oh, well, if this character gets this close to someone, they're just going to die. So, and that's one thing I do say I hate when characters pull well, everyone I ever loved dies. Because one, yes, that could be a random one-off case, but to me, that signals that anyone they're going to get close to, that author just tipped me off that they're going to have them die. So I don't get invested in the relationships because if everyone dies, I don't know if I want to get invested in their comings and goings with the other characters.
Yeah. And another character that they said that about was Elizabeth Swann from the Pirates of the Caribbean series. Every man she kissed in that series of movies died.
Yeah.
She kissed Norrington, she kissed Jack, and she kissed Will. All three men died.
It's unfortunate. It's truly unfortunate.
Truly unfortunate.
Yeah. The flip side of this, of killing your character too often, is having a character go through situations that you know 100% there's no way they would have made it out alive. So using them as plot armor. For example, my husband read Quicksilver, or let me specify. He read the first chapter. I wouldn't say he got more than 5 pages in before he was like, absolutely not. That doesn't make sense. Where she talks about being, these guards are the hardest things to ever kill. They're damn near impossible to take down. But yet this young I think she's like 18, 19 years old. I don't remember. No training, somehow manages to slice off the hand of one of them or two of them and kill one or two. I can't remember now. It's been a few months. And she walked out of that alive with multiples of them trying to fight her. But yet they were almost impossible to hurt. And she did it with daggers and they had swords. Absolutely not. In what world? Apparently that one doesn't make sense. The plot armor was thick for that girl. Just in the first chapter. So if you're going to throw your characters into some heavy combat or some crazy shit, make sure if they are not, the chances of survival are slim, that someone is dying and not, ooh, do, we're all making it out alive. Everything's great and happy dandy dory, you know?
Or at least grievously injured.
Yeah.
There has to be some impact from a battle.
Yeah. Which brings us to our next situation. Dangerous situations are dangerous. They need to have repercussions for going into battles, fights, sticky situations where they're sneaking around or whatever the case may be. Your characters are not infallible, so maybe treat them as such. Give them injuries. Make it to where they're almost dead and literally crawling out underneath a pile of bodies after fighting something. Give him the Jon Snow, you know where I mean, in that pile of bodies, and he somehow manages to crawl out, but he is like damn near dead and somehow made it out. That makes sense. So you gotta give us a little something here.
There needs to be, if you're in a dangerous situation, even if they come out of it alive and whole, there has to be some recognition of, holy shit, I survived that kind of situation. Or they come out grievously wounded. Maybe they're missing a leg or a hand or foot. I don't know. There's something missing. If they're a guy, maybe it's something else. I don't know.
I can't say because I've done it in my books.
That's true. So if you're in a dangerous situation, unless they're like fated to only be killed by some other thing, so they're just performing jackass stunts just because they can, they know they aren't going to die, there needs to be some impact from that. Like, even if they don't die, they can still be really, you can get hurt by quite a bit and still live.
Oh yeah.
So keep that in mind.
Yeah, which would bring us to chances of survival, right? When you're discussing wounds, right? How much of a chance do they have? So if you start weighing things like, you know, beheading versus getting stabbed, beheading, no chance in hell. If you do, that is some crazy stuff because your whole spinal cord is severed, like your brain's dead. Versus a stabbing, it's highly likely you could survive depending on where you get stabbed at. So keep that in mind when you are deciding how to wound your characters, and whether or not they have a chance of survival at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you have someone that is in a battle and maybe they didn't get beheaded, but they got their throat cut, they probably ain't going to make that one. That's very rare in my understanding of my research. They lose that much blood that fast, even with magic. That's a hard wound to get them to live through.
Yeah.
Like, it's distantly possible, but it's hard, and you're going to see some impact on that person for the rest of their life for that.
I think I've watched a lot of true crime, and I think I have only heard of one person out of all the numbers of true crime I've listened to. Only one person that has actually had their throat cut and survived. And they were extremely lucky. I mean, she literally said,
Australia?
I don't know. I think it was one of Ted Bundy's. I'm pretty sure that she...
there was a lady in her.
Yeah, it was a lady that he ended up cutting her throat, and she like literally was holding her neck together in hopes that she survived, and she somehow did. It's crazy. So it is possible, but that's like a 1 in a million chance there. Like,
trigger warning for body horror just for a second. There was a lady in Australia that was almost beheaded and somehow lived. Like, when she got up, she was like, had one arm was clutching her guts in, and the other arm, when she stood up, it all she saw was the night sky for some reason, and she realized her head had literally flopped back. So she used her hair to pull her head up and walked toward the roads like that to try and find help in Australia.
Oh shit,
I'll send
that's
you the link.
crazy.
Bailey Sarian. Bailey Sarian did an episode on it. It's crazy. So yeah,
Oh my god, that's nuts.
I'll stop talking about it now. But
That's like a straight death becomes her situation where she's like literally
yeah,
like picking her head.
it's nasty.
I'm not laughing because of that poor lady. I was laughing because of Meryl Streep and Goldie Hawn.
Uh, that is
The comical
a
version.
fair assessment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you the
Um,
link.
send me that. Yeah. um, also, when you are grievously wounding your characters, wounds should be treated appropriately based on their time frame. So, if you are, you know, medieval fantasy, you're very limited to what you can do in terms of wound care and stuff like that. Versus if it's like urban fantasy, then, you know, you have today's modern type medicine and procedures and stuff like that. Also, magic. Magic can heal a lot. In my books, magic does not cure everything. It can help the speeding up the process of healing and stuff like that. But guess what? You still got to take antibiotics. So, yeah, depending on your time frame and what genre you're in and stuff like that, wound care should be treated appropriately for the time frame.
Keeping that in mind, you also do have to remember that some of the quote unquote primitive civilizations were way more advanced than history likes to make them out to be. So if you are going to draw inspiration from an early civilization, make sure you do your proper research because they may have been way more medically advanced than probably whoever colonized that civilization expected them to be and thought it was just blasphemous because of the church. That's always the
Yeah,
church,
see,
right?
when I thought medieval, I thought medieval Europe where they just, the shit they did was archaic. But yeah, you make a good point.
So just make sure you're doing the appropriate research, especially if it's not a culture that you grew up in and are so you're not very familiar with it. And I say this because I actually just watched this Instagram reel, and it's a woman from India, and she talks about the different drapes of saris
Mm-hmm.
and how the look was colonized and treated as shameful, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But the last reel that I just watched from her was a very good point that I knew in the back of my mind, but I just hadn't thought about it because the English colonists were like, oh, they're so primitive, they don't know anything. But if you look back at some of their textiles, they did not, how they wove that cloth is they calculated exactly how long the color had to be on the thread or yarn, whatever they were using to weave, dyed it to that length so that as they wove it, the pattern was revealed. That is high ass advanced programming math.
Yeah.
So, keeping that example in mind, make sure you're doing the appropriate research for the appropriate medical technology. Now, if we're talking like you said, medieval Europe, yeah, it's bitch.
You're fucked. Yeah.
But if you're talking a culture or that was so-called primitive, make sure you're actually doing research from within that culture and their sources and their history and not what other people wrote about them.
Yeah. A good example of this would be like Chinese medicine, right? The Eastern Chinese medicine, they've been doing that for thousands of years. India is another one with their, I can't think of the name. It starts with an A. They have a whole system of medicine. I mean, Native Americans have all different systems of how they worked with herbs and stuff like that. So, yeah, depending on where you look for inspiration, you could find a wealth of knowledge in wound care. And, you know, if you are someone that is BIPOC or, yeah, that.
Yeah, you got it.
For some reason, I was like, is that right? If you're BIPOC and you do look to those cultures, you know, that's something that you could really pull from if that's somewhere you come from. And that actually brings a very interesting point of view to fantasy novels. I love reading novels that have different cultures in them. It makes it so much different than just the white person fantasy novel. Like the amount of like Asian writers that are coming out with like the Asian mythology in their fantasy, I'm eating that shit up. I have so many on my TBR right now. So, yeah, again, looking towards those other cultures, don't appropriate, but, you know, could be something you pull inspiration from on time frame and cultures and stuff.
I'll rephrase, research respectfully.
There you go. Yeah. I think that would bring us to our witchy tip. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Since we're talking about killing off characters, sometimes in your witchy practice, you will be called to kill relationships. This has happened to me where it was actually someone that was really close to me and things just weren't aligning. And I found that I was getting sidetracked and things just kept getting in the way of me trying to push further with like my writing career and stuff like that. So my cards kept telling me, you got to cut this person out. You got to do it. You got to do it. My spirit guide's telling me has to happen. It has to happen if you want to push forward. So sometimes you may be called to kill relationships and release them and move on so that bigger things can come your way, which that did for me in the form of this podcast and a publishing house and another friend. So it opened the door for so many other opportunities. And sometimes you have to do the painful part of cutting out relationships that may not be serving you anymore for your greater good.
And there's a couple ways of doing that. I'm going to talk specifically about within the witchy practice. I'm not going to talk about, talking to somebody and letting them know that, or just ghosting them. It's your choice. It's whatever you want to do. But I know probably the most popular one is the cord cutting.
Yeah.
And that is essentially 2 taper candles with a piece of twine tied between them.
I love it.
And I've seen the one that I tend to see, she does a circle of salt in a line between the candles as well as around other protection stones and herbs that are also scattered in there. I don't know the exact names off the top of my head. You would have to research that. But then you light both candles and eventually the candles will burn down to the twine that is tied onto them and it will burn the twine apart. And that is one way of doing a cord cutting.
Yeah.
You don't cut per se as burn.
I mean, but if you wanted to, you could do a physical cord cutting. I know a lot of people do knot work in cords. And sometimes if you are into numerology, you could do like a certain amount of knots for one person based off their name or whatever. And then one on your side and then literally physically cut the cord. I've even seen that with like thresholds. Like you walk through the threshold and you cut it and you're like, okay, we're done. So there are a lot of different ways. I would say the cord cutting with the 2 candles is probably the most popular. But yeah. Or, you just tell them like deuces and move on. So yeah, that's our witchy tip for this episode.
Also, when you're doing that, make sure you're also putting in protections for yourself. I mean, you should always put in protections for yourself whenever you're doing any magic, but this is also especially to make sure that's not any negative energy they're sending your way for cutting them out of your life isn't rebounding on you. And potentially, if they turn very negative and malicious about it, you want to make sure you have that protection already set up.
Yeah. I agree. So should we jump back into killing characters? Yes. Okay. Now we're going to talk about characters surviving. So, when you put your character through the battle of all battles and they are grievously wounded, wounds take time to heal. And depending on how bad, it could take a lot of time. Especially if there is no magic involved, which, let's be fair, there's always magic. But it's going to take time. So keep that in mind when you're writing it.
And the length of time is going to depend on the severity of the wound.
Sorry, it's my oldest. She's asking for time on her phone. Sorry, go ahead.
The length of time they are going to take to heal is going to depend on the severity of the wound. If we're talking a paper cut versus a deep gash across the bicep, those are going to be two vastly different healing times. If you're talking a little bruise from banging into the corner of the desk like I do every freaking day versus a crushed femur, you're going to take time, different times to heal from that. So keep that in mind as you're writing. If they survived, what wounds they had, and how long they're going to take to heal from that, especially if they don't have magic healing assisting them, if you're not in a fantasy novel.
Yeah. And also, keeping that in mind is if they are grievously wounded, right? Say they do get this giant gash across their bicep. It's highly unlikely they're going to be running into another battle within a few days. So they're kind of out for the count for a little while. So, I mean, also keep that in mind in the perspective of somewhat realistic expectations. Yeah. If they have a crushed femur, they're not going to be running into battle. It ain't happening. But also, there are some wounds that will permanently change your character. Leona.
Guilty.
You've done it. Not just physical, but, emotional wounds too, because we are talking about killing characters. There are emotional wounds there too that they will have to deal with. But physically, if someone's chopping off a finger, they have to relearn how to hold things, use utensils. That pinky, it does a lot. You may not think so, but that person has to relearn how to grab things, hold things, right. So if you do that, you have to keep that in mind, that there are certain things that they may have to completely relearn how to do if you grievously injure to the point of, taking a limb. And I laugh because you've done it.
I have done it, yes. And we all know that the scar across the eye looks sick as hell. But if that blade actually went into the eye and injured the eye, like she said, it's going to take time to learn to adapt to that because your character no longer has depth perception.
They may not have sight at all.
Into walls. Yeah, they may not have any sight in that eye.
Yeah.
Or it may have it. So they're going to be running into walls. They're going to be misjudging distances when they go to reach for things. They're going to... I know one character that I think of that did this was Kerrigan Gladheaton from the Green Rider series by Kirsten Britton. She lost an eye. And Kirsten Britton made a point of saying... You didn't see it a lot because the loss of the eye versus the start of the next book, there was a little time in there. But she does make a point of saying she had to relearn how to do a lot of this stuff and adjust. And she still sometimes made mistakes because she didn't have that eye.
Yeah.
So.
As another point, certain injuries can flare up and cause issues later on as well. Like, I know someone that ended up tripping and crushed bones in their foot. To this day, they still struggle with their foot. Yeah, I don't know how she did it. Even she was just like, it didn't make any freaking sense to me either, but here we are with screws and plates and stuff in my foot. So even to this day, she still struggles. She struggles to find shoes. She struggles in certain temperatures and weather. You know, those are things that you also have to think about. You know, if your character has their knee crushed, they are going to struggle to walk their entire life. And there will be times where, you know, you may have to throw in oh man, I need to sit. My knee is flaring up. You know what I mean? So also keep that in mind that it is permanent. There's going to be residual pain and inflammation and things that are going to stop them from doing everyday things for the rest of their life.
I'm going to talk about one more injury and then we can move on for this. But the reason I'm bringing it up is sometimes what happens later is a direct result of the injury, even though it may not look like it. So I know someone who broke their ankle and they had to have metal plates and screws. And due to the metal plates in their body eventually became allergic to the metal and was flaring up in different ways. And so the surgeon went in to remove the plates and screws. Now that they were healed, one of the screws broke off in the bone. So they permanently have a piece of the metal screw lodged in their ankle bone. They cannot, it's a weird side effect. They cannot directly apply essential oils to their skin or they will flare into a nasty, nasty rash. Like even a drop will
That's crazy.
So there could be side effects from grievous wounds that it takes a minute to see how they're related. So have fun with that.
Yeah. And let me tell you,
I feel really bad for her. It sucks.
That's awful. I mean, hell, stress can cause freaking autoimmune disorders if you're under enough stress. So, you know, you can have fun with that one too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So now we've grievously wounded, we've killed off characters. Now we get to talk about grief. I've worked with this a lot. This is my forte. Hers was amputee characters. Mine is grief. If this character is close to your protagonist, you need to show the grief. And not just, oh, I'm a little sad. I'm thinking about this person. Okay, so what are we having for dinner? That's not that's not going to do a good job at showing their grief. When people lose someone to death, grief shows up in a lot of different ways, but a lot of the times they're crying. There's depression. There's not leaving their house, not showering. They're not doing their usual activities because that's all they can think about. Or, you know, they could become really angry. They can start using substances. There is a whole array of things that you could witness happening to a character that shows grief without having to say, oh, I'm sad, I'm thinking about this person. So keep that in mind as you go to kill off characters. Your other characters, your cast of characters, are going to react to that grief differently. So it's going to be a lot to handle when you do kill off characters and when it comes to grief.
And it's I'm thinking of two different situations here. One of the situations is that they knew they were terminal. Maybe it was a long-running illness that they knew was going to end in a terminal illness versus someone suddenly getting their head chopped off out of nowhere. Those are still going to be long-running stages of grief to deal with, but they are going to be processed differently.
Yeah.
Like the one with the terminal illness that lost the person has had a long time to think about it, to adjust to it, to start to accept that this is going to happen one way or the other. The person that just lost their best friend because the villain just cut their head off is going to process that very differently because they're going to be in shock. You're going to be dealing with that shock of the death before they can even think about going through what the normal stages of grief are. So just keep that in mind as you're killing off characters.
Yeah. Would you point out a good point is look up the different stages of grief. It's been documented. There's a lot of research on it. Sometimes people will have all of them. Some will have one or two. It all depends. But if you want to portray a death and make it meaningful, especially not only to your characters, but to your readers who are reading about your character processing it, read those steps of grief. Because it's most people tend to go through it. You know, there's going to be denial. There's no way that this happened. They're coming back. Something else happened. I can't. So denial and anger and acceptance and all of those things, it's a lot. But also grief takes time to work through. It's not, they died. Okay, tomorrow's a new day. We're getting over it. It takes a long time. Those mental wounds last. And sometimes they can have good days and then something hits them and then they're like, oh shit. And they're in tears because they saw something that reminded their character of their best friend that they lost. And they just break down. Total breakdown. Or, you know, maybe it's every day it does get a little better. But either way, it takes time and you need to show that so that death really hits not only your character, but your readers.
Yeah, because they're going to want to they're going to want to be, you're going to want to remind the reader of the character as well in different ways. So having the main character processing that grief and pointing it out in ways that is impactful is what's going to make your reader feel something.
Yeah. I mean, I'll use a good example. In Unleashed, Amy loses her parents right before Unleashed starts. And it literally talks about the first 2 weeks after that. She doesn't do anything. She's literally in bed. She's sleeping. She's cut everyone out. She doesn't want to talk to anybody. She's depressed. She mentions that she's barely showered. She hasn't brushed her hair. She's a mess. So it really shows you how deeply she was affected by her parents' loss. And even when, you know, the guys come in to talk to her, she's like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it. If I do, I'm just going to cry and I'm done crying. So you have to kind of give your readers these little nuggets of showing their grief after dealing with something that is so meaningful to them.
And also taking into account how that affects them physically. Grief is exhausting, not just emotionally, but physically. Like you said, you cry a lot. And crying as an adult will physically exhaust you. Like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you cry for an extended period of time over and over and over again, you are going to be exhausted.
Yeah.
Physically, not just emotionally and mentally. So that's something to think about too. And you're not going to have any motivation or energy to get up because of how your mental state. So there's a lot of physical indicators of grief as well as the mental and emotionals. Like you could probably describe someone's physical state and people would recognize, oh, they're grieving without even getting a hint of their mental or emotional state. So that is just something our society knows.
Yeah.
But then there's also some people that don't notice it at all and they're dickheads about it, but that's that.
I mean, one good indicator that literally it's like a telltale sign that someone has died is their neighbors bringing them food, bringing them a casserole dish. And that doesn't tell you don't know anything other than, oh, well, I just thought I'd come over and, you know, bring you something to eat, because you know damn well they're not eating. They don't have the energy to cook. They don't care. So if you want to use something that is a good indicator is, you know, I've seen it there was one book I read where they talked about how the neighbor, like, oh, another neighbor came by and brought another casserole dish because, you know, I'm not cooking and I'm not eating. Oh, so sorry. And my phone was going off. What the heck? So, if you have experience with grief, there are certain markers that have nothing to do with your physical appearance, your mental state, that you could key someone off. Talking about medical bills, if it is something that you knew was coming, like maybe someone was terminal, dealing with medical bills, the casserole dishes coming in, or, having someone come over just to check on them, stuff like that. Those are all tips of grief without it being anything to do with mental, physical, emotional state. So that's another option.
Yeah, like you could actually start a book with the character opening up the fridge and making a comment of all of the neighbors' casserole dishes stared back at me. That's going to tell you they just went through something bad.
Yeah,
Just
someone
that
just
one
died.
line alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that immediately I'm like, "Oh, damn, someone died. This stinks."
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's another indicator. I'm trying to think if there's anything else when it comes to grief. Except if you're going to write it, make sure you write it good. If you don't have experience with it, maybe ask someone who has, but I'm pretty sure everyone's lost someone in their life. Because grief is a touchy subject. Everyone grieves differently, but you don't want to do it a disservice either. You don't want to take it lightly because it is serious. So, yeah.
Also consider the ages of the characters too.
Yeah.
Different people of different ages are going to process grief differently, as well as people that have been around a lot of grief. War veterans. Oh my God, they process grief so differently because of what they've been through. So keep that in mind too. How much experience to death has this character already been exposed to? So that they're probably going to process it. I'm not going to say faster, but they're going to process it differently
Yeah.
than someone that's just experienced the loss of someone close to them for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
So keep that in mind too.
So, like you said, like maybe that is the character that's like everyone I ever loved dies. They're going to become numb to it. Like, yes, it's still going to bother them and it's going to affect them, but there's going to be a certain extent where they become numb to the loss. They start cutting people off. They don't get close to people. Those are all forms of grief. If you feel like everyone around you dies or everyone you love dies, they're not going to be getting close to anybody. They're going to shut themselves off, which is a form of grief, because why put yourself through that again? So you make that's a good point.
Those are all my points.
Yeah, I think we've hammered that one home. I mean, I write grief. I just do. I kill them off and then they make them sad. Had a lot of experience with it in the last 3 years. So that would bring us to the end of this episode and on to book reviews, which I do not have one because I just started 2 new books right at the beginning of this week. So I didn't have anything. On to you.
So you can get this graphic novel online from Boom Studios. The edition that I'm going to show you, I was part of the Kickstarter for. So this is the graphic novel adaptation of Jim Henson's The Labyrinth. I have a very pretty slipcase.
So pretty.
And a very pretty art. It's so pretty.
It is.
It's shiny.
It's so nice. Oh, hold on. For whatever reason, I cannot hear you. I don't know if it's me, but I'm also not seeing your thing turn green.
Da, 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 da,
there we go. Okay.
My thing's...
Okay. I thought it was me.
Okay, so I don't know how much the technical difficulties just killed what I was saying, but this is based off of the 80s movie Labyrinth with David Bowie and, oh wow, I can't think of her name. Jennifer O'Connelly. So it's a story of Sarah, a 16-year-old girl that lives with her father, stepmother, and stepbrother, and the stepbrother is a young baby, and she is tired of being his caretaker when her father and stepmother go out for evenings to themselves. and wishes for the goblins to take them away. And Jareth, the king of the goblins, played by David Bowie, does so because he's in love with her. So that is the story of it. If you have not seen the movie Labyrinth, as an adult, it's probably going to hit you differently than if you watched it when you were a kid, because it definitely has nostalgia goggles for me. Like, thinking about it now, thinking about it in other ways, it is kind of not great, but it's still a beautiful novel. It still has beautiful art. This is the ballroom scene. They did a very good job of adapting all of the scenes from the movie, and like there's Jareth. They stayed true to the characters. Okay, my computer is being stupid. You got some cool character concept art in the back for this one anyway. So, yeah, I mean, there's not much more I can say about it. I really love that movie. It's one of my favorite movies from the 80s. So I was all in on this particular Kickstarter. I wish I could have gotten more from that Kickstarter, but money.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you have a chance to pick up the graphic novel adaptation and you like Labyrinth, it's a fun read. If you've never seen the movie Labyrinth, but you would prefer to just read it, it's still a fun read. So,
I will say, as someone who had not seen it before until recently, it's of its time. The whole relationship, it's a little predatory, I won't lie, because she's 16 and he's like full ass adult. But I will say, those costume people knew what they were doing putting David Bowie in those pants.
They did indeed. David Bowie and his
knew
balls.
What they were doing. Yeah, I think that's it. So you can find us at writingwithwitches.com. You can email us at writingwithwitches@gmail.com. We are on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Blue Sky. Although I will repeat myself, TikTok has hated us since the day we set up our account, and we are no longer posting there, but you can find us on there. Yeah, and we have a Discord server, Writing with Witches, so if you would like to join our Discord server, it's always linked down below, and you can hang out with us and chit-chat. You can find me at authornicoleautumn.com, because I finally got my own domain name. Fancy. And I am on all the aforementioned places, although I have not been posting recently because we've been busy behind the scenes with Mythweaver Books Publishing House. Yeah. All of my stuff will be linked below. Leona?
You can find me on Facebook or Instagram as Leona Urbanski Author. You can also find me on my website, leonaurbanskiauthor.com, or sign up for my Substack at leonaurbanskiauthor.substacks.com. Or you can find both of us at mythweaverbooks.com, where we have set up our shop. You will be able to do pre-orders on Fire Magic. You will be able...
merch!
You will be able to... Merch, of course.
I was like, duh.
You're going to be able to order the Secret Society series as well there. And yes, go for the merch. I am so getting that gym bag.
Oh my god, I know. My gym is my garage, but I still want that gym bag just so I could walk out to my garage holding it. Or I could just use it as a takeaway bag when I go and visit somewhere. Like, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you all for watching and or listening. Next episode, we are going to be covering one of two episodes. We're not entirely sure yet. Depends on how things go this week. One, either writing realistic injuries and wounds, or we're going to have a review of Arcana Academy by Elise Kova. We'll see. Depends on how fast I can read it, really. It's my fault. So thank you all for watching and or listening. We hope you have a wonderful week. And we will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.